Hey everyone, I am recording this because I realized I already had tickets to go to see someone with my brother, and so I can't be in class even though I signed up for it. So I'm real smart, but it kind of works out because this will make it faster. I think not having to set everything up, pull up my stuff on the screen, and other people need to present today, and a lot of them last week weren't ready to go. Right, so I mean maybe this will end up being better. So I'm gonna keep this short, 5 minute presentation here, 5 minute video, and then we'll move on. Anyway, I'm Wes Kutzke. This is for EDU 5060, Carthage College, instructor Bardeen. And this is my research paper. This is just a quick overview of what I did. It's not going to go into super details about everything. It's just a quick oversight. So here's my main thing on the slide. You can see here it's technology's influence on mental health in school, and is it worth it? Meaning, is it worth using technology in school? Is the highlight here. So I'm going to start off with a short little clip of a video on an expert in my eyes. I'm just going to pull up his page here on Google. His name is Andrew Huberman. He's actually a neuroscientist, and he's a tenured associate professor at Stanford University. So someone who has obviously pretty good standing. And this is still a clip from Joe Rogan's podcast that he was on, and he was talking about technology a bit. He's mainly focused on sleep, and he does talk about how phone usage can affect your sleeping. Obviously, we've heard that before, but he just talks about technology a little bit here.
But the phone is starting to gobble up all that dopamine and all that space-time duration path outcome stuff, and we are wasting our cognition, and we're wasting the most precious gift we were given by Mother Nature and evolution is a brain that can teach itself things and that can predict things and that can look at the past, can learn from elders and gain wisdom. I mean, all that stuff is what we were put here to do. And my dad said, I asked him if he thinks there are other galaxies, because he's more versed in physics and the cosmos than I am. And he said, I don't know, but if there was, they'd probably extinguish themselves with social media, because it's like mental chewing gum, people just kind of throwing away their cognition. And the dopamine.
Okay, and he'll talk about like the brain chemistry and all that stuff because that's his thing. But that is a big part of my presentation. And my research paper is actually social media specifically going to be a big focus. But first, let's just get the thesis out of the way. Topics of technology and mental health will be explored in the context of education in the school environment and the pros and cons of its use or integration in a classroom. So, I mean, it's just going to be in a general thing. Obviously, in the classroom, too, is a focus within the paper. But I think that there's a lot of overlap, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But what did I research? Here's the 4 papers that I had looked into. These are their topics specifically. Social media being one, of course. And that wasn't really necessarily a paper. That was Jonathan Haidt. There's a lot of videos on YouTube if you want to check them out. But he talks about social media use, specifically linking it to mental health illnesses and just trends and correlations, heavy correlations, especially in youth. And then the next one was a learner attention span and achievement. Third one was screen time. And then the last one is kind of like something about a pitch about how to use it in the classroom. That one was interesting. All those things, though, do come together to give me some pros and some cons of technology. And so I'm just going to, instead of going into all the stats and stuff that I could pull up from those papers, like Jonathan Haidt, I mentioned correlation. He goes into the numbers, man, about all the percentages. It talks about how youth with, I think, 10 to 14 females have gone triple since, like, the early 2000s. Suicide rate has tripled since then. So, I mean, there's some alarming numbers I could bring up, but I think it's just better for this short presentation to go over some of the basics. So the positives of technology use is a good hook and motivation. So this is, again, specifically for education and in the classroom. So it can be used like I just used that video, right? I mean, it can really just, depending how you want to use it, be a powerful hook to get people to like really take something seriously, or it could be funny. There's a lot of things you can do with technology. So especially in the beginning to hook them in, and then obviously mixed in properly. They mentioned that in that paper about attention span. It has to be used properly and purposefully. It can't just be like willy-nilly. It can't be used the entire time. It's got to be used with intent. It can help keep the attention span. It's just another positive. And then lastly, it can, obviously, here's one that everyone would know, it can help you with interacting with people. So interacting with you guys right now, technology is allowing me to do this. I can't be there in person. So, I mean, just allowing me to do that with you, with teachers, with students, there's a lot of uses with the interaction and interacting with things you couldn't normally interact with, right? There's like virtual tours of museums that maybe you can go on a field trip to, but they can look at it through the lens of a computer. So, I mean, there are positives. There's no denying that, but there are negatives. That's what the next slide is about. It can be a distraction for one. It just is. I mean, we're all teachers or coaches or something. You see people go on their phones all the time. So it can be obnoxious when you're trying to get across to your students when they pull that out. They already have the recommended amount of screen time. That's just a blanket statement that came from the research, one of the papers I had been going over. So giving them more screen time in school is going to go over that recommended amount. And it is recommended for a reason, right? It is about health. And we're teachers. We're supposed to be advocating for student health, our own health even. And if we're using technology, we're also going to be on these screens. So we're already getting over that recommended amount. So adding more screen time in school is obviously going to make that worse. Social media use, I talked about it. There are major correlations, especially in young teens. And it's not just girls. That was just one example with the suicide rate, but depression, anxiety, all that has been going up. And if you look at the numbers, there's a heavy correlation with the beginning use of social media with those trends where they started to start going up rapidly. And then just in general, the stimulation levels, you talked about dopamine and everything, the neuroscientists, that's going to be hard to compete against. You're going to be trying to have to give those kicks to those kids now. Like I'm trying to like stimulate their minds. And I mean that in a very real way. Then on top of it, you're competing with technology that can give them unlimited entertainment, right? TikTok, YouTube, whatever. They're going to be all over it. So you have to compete with that now. So giving them access to it in your classroom is just going to be kind of rough. So here's the conclusion. It needs to be very controlled. I mean, teaching virtually, we learned last year, or well, not last year, but the year before that, teaching online, it was kind of rough. And a lot of it came from we weren't ready, but also students just being at home. It's a poor environment for a lot of them. And then they have so much free reign to do what they want that they could turn off their camera and you wouldn't know what they're doing. And the chances aren't very high that they're focused. So it just seems easier to keep it as a controlled element. You can restrict it in the best ways and use it in the best ways then to keep kids safe and healthy, and also just keep those benefits, though, when you need it, it can still be used. So that's the conclusion. It's my bibliography page, excuse me. And that's all I got. So pretty simple, straightforward, and yeah, something to think about for sure.